Didn't give me a big enough root ball. They decide when they hit that imbalance that they're not, that they start to shrink that head down real fast. Yes.
What's a good definition of hormonal imbalance, or maybe could you just execute that some more?
There's the cytokinins and the auxins, and I can't remember which one's created by which part, but the growing root tip creates one, and the growing leaf tip creates the other, and they functionally keep the plant in balance. Like, ever seen an oak tree in the middle of a field? It grew up in the middle of the field, that big, broad, bushy structure. That's what a balanced plant looks like. It's got a big, broad, bushy structure. That's what the savanna ecosystem is these big, broad trees.
So
And
you're
you
saying
want
that
that structure.
There are hormones produced by those tips?
By the
or
growing
those-
root tip and by the growing leaf tip, and they're called cytokinins and auxins.
I think auxins are in the leaf tip.
Auxins, the leaf tip,
Yeah, that's what they are in fruit trees. So.
and the cytokinins are the root tip. And
Is that
the cytokinins
ANS
keep
or
the top.
IN that's at the end of the words?
IN,
Okay.
cytokinin. It's on page
They each
8 of
inhibit
this
the other,
handout.
so like the root.
They each inhibit the other.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So when the leaf gets too big, when the top gets too big, it inhibits the root growth. So you put a seedling into the ground with a big top and not much roots, and it basically, that imbalance is maintained through the whole life cycle of the plant, which is why I think bare root seedlings for trees is like, you see people buy this bare root seedlings and you got this tall 3-4 foot tree on top and this little bit of a root on the bottom. When you stick it into the ground, and anybody have fruit trees that sit there and don't do crap except get eaten by insects and diseases? I mean, one of the best ways to do that is to put I think,
Right.
one of those bare root seedlings into the ground like that. It's just you don't understand what you're doing. You think, all you think about is the top of the plant. You don't think about the bottom of the plant. And my understanding is that the bottom of the plant is really, really, really important. It might be a better idea to just cut that bare root seedling off, 3 inches above the graft. I don't know. I haven't put my perennials in yet because I'm really struggling with this whole concept, and haven't had the money and I haven't had the time. But either way, that's root and top balance. Intention is my last topic on this slide. I was going, a friend of mine was, I was driving by her house and she had called me up and said, would you please come look at my garden? For some reason she was feeling insecure about her gardening, even though she shouldn't have been. She thought I knew something, which I don't really, but you know how these things work, right? The people, they don't trust themselves and they think other people know more than they do. Anyway, Liz, she's a total sweetheart. She asked me to come stop by and walk her field with her, and I said, sure, I'll come by and walk your field with you. And so she'd taken the course, she was doing all these things, she was inoculating, she was mulching, she was irrigating, she was la la la. And I was walking to the field and I was like, Liz, she had about 1 acre of mixed vegetables, and things look gorgeous. Things look like anybody who's got an acre would be happy to trade their acre with hers, just about. Things looked really quite nice. So I was like, tomatoes look awesome, cucumbers are looking great, chard looks beautiful. Got to the onions and like, what'd you do to the onions? She's like, nothing different. We did the same thing to everything. I'm like, no, these onions got treated differently. I don't know. I've grown onions.
Fighting on the common plan.
No,
Oh.
the exact opposite. These onions were like perfect.
Oh,
They were, every single one was like gorgeous, perfect. I've grown onions. I've never grown perfect onions. I've never grown close to perfect onions. There's always at least a quarter to a third that's like, those are the ones you pull up for green onions. And these were like, every single one was perfect. I was like, Liz, these onions are amazing. What did you do to the onions? She's like, nothing different. I said, yeah, those look, everything else looks good. Those look amazing. I said, fine, okay. We kept walking down the field, blah, blah, blah. Get to the bottom of the field. She's like, I remember what it was. It was February 15th, and we were all getting spring fever and wanted to get our hands in the dirt. And we stopped for a second before we planted the onions and had a moment of silence and prayed, felt, intended, use your word for your religion. I don't really care. They were just present with the onions. And I was like, oh, that explains it. I knew you did something. I mean, it was pretty obvious something happened here. So we can talk about all these other aspects, but as far as I'm concerned, what makes a green thumb is that aspect, that feeling, that intention, that connection, that respect, that aspect. So I'm going to start talking about it now, and I'll be talking about it a lot more as we proceed through the rest of the day, but The foundational management practices are all critical. Water's important, air is important, minerals are important, biology is important, but consciousness, intention, prayer, whatever you want to call it, for me is the X factor that is of massive importance in this whole process. And I don't know if you know what love is or you know how to feel, like not like feel, but like feel. If you know what that means, if you can consciously, bring that upon yourself, if you can intend that for your plants, my experience has been that what comes back at you is amazing. And the effect, the response on the physical plane is absolutely profound. So,
Positivity and negativity are very profound in animals.
I think they're profound in life. And it is, I think we are dealing with life in all things.
We have a culture of profound negativity right now, so. among
Some
humans.
people may engage in negativity. As long as we engage that, we are part of it. I think all we can do is maintain as much coherence and compassion as possible, and just walk that. If God is everywhere, if God is all things, and God is love, then I use life and nature and science and universe and love and God as synonyms. Those are, in my world, synonyms. And so, if we want to actually be there, let's just be there. Let's engage that consciously and practice being in that space. And it's a lot easier with nature than it is with humans sometimes.
I was gonna say, the more
It's
we
a lot
see ourselves
easier.
as separate from other
Yeah.
beings and things.
You may not know this, but Jesus used all those words interchangeably.
I did not know that. I have great respect for the man, or the whatever he was, the incarnate. He started off as a man and ended up as or something. I don't know exactly. We can talk about that one. Jesus of Nazareth and then Jesus the Christ.
Take it
You know.
with face value, it's pretty amazing.
Doesn't really matter. It's the message. The message is all we need. So, anyway, going to page 2, I'd like to talk about the logistics of putting plants in the ground. And I don't think we have a conductivity meter here, so I'm just going to have to pretend that we've got one. And I'll describe it for you. So, cover crop to crop process, as far as the logistics are concerned, of going from where your ground is now to having crops in it. For me, there's a couple basic steps here I want to just sort of review with you. I like to think that the majority of my work for the year is done once I put my plants in the ground. That's been my experience. The only thing that's really left to do is pick. In most cases, once I've got my plants into the ground, they're pretty much off and running, and there's not a lot really I need to do beyond that. But it's really important to me to get them into the ground as well as possible. We've talked about some of the logistics of starting seedlings and how to do it well. So as far as the logistics are concerned, address mineral deficiencies based on soil test results and recommendations. We talked about that yesterday. Hopefully you can do that between now and when you get your plants in the ground. If you can't, so be it. It's certainly something to be working towards as far as I'm concerned. Apply minerals, always apply minerals with a carbon source like humates, compost, or biochar. As a general rule of thumb, it is good to put your minerals in with some sort of a carbon buffer balance. I said putting them into the compost pile is a great way to get them pre-digested, and actually you dramatically increase their availability through that, which means you can decrease the quantity if you want. Apply fertilizer. If you are the kind of person who applies fertilizer, whether it's compost or whether it's composted chicken manure or whether it's a 5-3-4 organic fertilizer or a 10-10-10 conventional fertilizer, whatever it is, I'm not going to judge you. I will give you a recipe for what I use, but I put that down before I prepare the bed. And I broadcast it across the entire bed and the pathway. As far as I'm concerned, my roots are going to be reaching out and talking to each other, and I don't have this idea that my plants are here and they're not here. Right? If they are here and not here, they're not healthy plants. I want my fertilizer, I want my minerals, I want my water, I want my biology, I want my air, I want everything across the entire field. It is a field, like a physics field. It's a vibrational field, and it should not be separate here, separate from there. If you operate in that mentality, you're not understanding how it works. People heard of Paul Stamets? Among other things, the human who has identified the world's largest living organism? The story about the world's largest living organism? He took a syringe full of a radioactive isotope and injected it into the forest floor, somewhere in the Pacific Northwest, I'm not exactly sure where, and had sensors set up. What's that?
I didn't,
I thought it was Oregon or
maybe
Washington.
broke the record of Wales.
It's a lot bigger than Wales.
No, Elaine said there was a largest organism with a fungus in Wales.
In Wales.
In Wales.
In Wales. Either way.
It was like 260 hectares.
I don't know why it's not the Amazon or the Congo,
Yeah,
but
right,
it's because they haven't looked there.
exactly.
Right. Either way, doesn't matter. The point is still the point, which is that he had these sensors set up for this radioactive isotope, which was not present in the background. And, you know, he injected the radioactive isotope into the forest floor, had a sensor, 100 feet away, 1,000 feet away, 2,000 feet away, a mile away, 5 miles away, 20 miles away. Boom. I'm not sure how far it was. 5 miles away, 10 miles away, speed of light. Injected it into the forest floor here. It was present there.
Well, it could blow between, or two, right? Like,
But the
it's like an information highway, so.
the fungal hyphae is like a fiber optic
Yeah.
network, and the element in chemistry is a vibration in physics,
Yeah.
and functionally, these elements are moving.
Communicating,
They are moving like electricity moves through an electric line from here to there. Like as I understand it,
yeah. And,
it
yeah.
speed of light. It is vibration. It is not matter. It is matter and it's vibration. The particle wave duality, like whatever it is, understand you're dealing with life in the soil. If anybody saw Avatar, the movie Avatar,
Yeah.
when they bow down and press their forehead to the earth and this web of light would reach out,
Yeah.
that web of light is what mycorrhizal fungi are, this web of light. And these minerals, elements, nutrients are flowing constantly from points of high concentration to points of low concentration. When I put minerals on my ground, I don't just put it on the field, the garden, the beds. I don't just put it, on the beds, not the pathways. I do from stone wall to stone wall. Where I come from, we have stone walls. That's your property line. I put my minerals down from the stone wall to the stone wall. At least do 10 feet outside the growing area, because things are going to be moving from, here to there. Understand it as a field, and these elements are chemistry, but also physics. They're also vibration. It's really, really interesting. Sorry for the digression. Yes. Not sorry.
There's a ton written on this, but just the other day, there was yet another article that was published in The Atlantic,
Yeah.
and I think you'll like the title, The Wood Wide Web is what they
The
call it.
Wood Wide Web.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice.
Also, facepalm moment. I remember leaving the movie theater after Avatar, and the person I got in the car with said, "Man, I wish we lived in a world like that."
Yeah.
And I was just like,
This is the world!
That's the
like,
point.
we did.
We do. That's why we have these myths.
I missed it, man!
No, this is a teaching moment, is what it is, because we've been brought up in this concept that everything is mechanistic and separate and reductionist, and we have these myths that are now being told, which explain the actual nature of things, and it's incumbent on us who understand that to use those as stories. Anybody heard of Joseph Campbell? Joseph Campbell, right? I'm not sure what he was, an anthropologist or something like that, but he basically, a very insightful man, and he understood that humans are tribal and learn through stories. Anybody ever had somebody rail off numbers at them and fancy words? You're like, don't know what you just said. I'm guessing you know more than I do because you're lots of numbers, but it doesn't mean anything to me. Right? You tell a human a story, and they feel it with their antenna systems, which we'll talk about, and they know it, and they resonate with it, and that's now their story. It's incumbent on us to learn a new story. The story is life. It's everywhere. It's all things. And when we begin to understand how it works, and we can begin to engage with it and tune into it and tap into it, I think that's the only way that the reality shifts, actually. Anyway, so I think Avatar is a wonderful opportunity to tell that story. And the people who did the animation worked at Los Alamos or Sandy at National Labs, and they were mapping the structure of humates, and mycorrhizal fungi, and that's where the animation came from. Like, it was actually the science of how it works. It was those people who study this at the fanciest and most expensive national labs who drew it out for us. Like, it is the truth in the story, but no one's making the connection. Technically, scientifically. I'm giving you the ingredients for my personal fertilizer recipe, which happens to also be available through the Mineral Depots if you so choose. Or you can get this stuff yourself, or you can do whatever you want with this information. These are pounds per acre. Or thereabouts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 50, or it was 150. So I think I got everything. K-Mag, Sulpomag. Compost, this is a, fungal, inoculated, blah, 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 biodynamically prepped compost. Alfalfa meal, kelp, sea salt, humates, gypsum, carbonatite, dynamine, green sand, rock phosphate. Pounds per acre. So the total is 1,000 pounds per acre.
Use GMO alfalfa.
Everything is certified organic.
What's
Every-
K-Mag?
Sulpomag is it's sulfur, magnesium, and potassium. It's a rock langbonite, I think is the if you're a geologist, what you call it.
Seven Springs Farms and Floyd had it.
Seven Springs Farm, I think, is a place around regionally that I've
Yeah, it's
heard about that
yeah.
has a bunch of these things available. Yeah.
Some of it's available up at New Country Organics in Waynesboro.
Yeah.
They did not have K-Mag.
You don't want K-Mag, you want Sulpomag. You want
Well,
K-Mag is the non-nice organic version. They spray.
You wrote
I did write K-Mag. I use them interchangeably.
Okay.
Okay, so it's Sulpomag.
what's this difference you're saying now?
Mark just told me this actually.
There's,
That the trio Sulpomag is the pure material, and the K-Mag is sprayed with something to keep the dust down, which is like diesel fuel or something, and it's not quite as clean as the Sulpomag. K-Mag specifically is not the one you want. You want the one that says trio on it.
Trio.
That's the company that makes it or something, but the product is called Sulpomag.
I guess I missed the context that you gave this.
This is the fertilizer that I use on my farm. Some people use composted chicken manure, some people put compost down, some people buy an organic 5-3-4 fertilizer, some people use 10-10-10. Whatever you use, you're gonna put this down before you prepare the bed. This is what I use for whatever it's worth. If you wanna know, if you wanna use something similar, if you've got too much, phosphorus in your soil, take the rock phosphate out. You got too much potassium in your soil, take the green sand out. This is a working model. My concept is I'm going to be harvesting 20,000 pounds of crops off my acre per year. And a lot of that is going to be minerals from the soil, and I want my tank to be full in October. I don't want it to be empty in October. So I put this on thinking that a lot of what's going to come out is going to be coming out of functionally this bag. I broadcast this before I prepare the bed, before I plant, which may happen within that 12 hours. If I'm planting in July a bed, I'll plant it. I plant it right before, I put this down right before planting, whenever it is that I'm putting my seeds in, or
Compost is
seedlings.
to mix all of your stuff together.
The compost is the inoculant, basically, is the biological inoculant.
How do you mix it?
I have my friend mix it for me.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I was always wondering if he uses feed mixers for the cattle to mix compost with minerals.
I think he uses something like a cement mixer, but,
It might work better.
yeah.
Okay, so it's a very broad question, but
And it's
our
lunchtime.
farm's been cropping the system that we've been doing it, and the previous farmer has been doing it before us for now 7 years. So it's based on a bagged fertilizer, everything's organic. It's based on compost. It's based on using some gypsum and some lime.
Mhm.
if I was to take your system and use this type of fertilizer, do my best with the soil test to correct the minerals that are deficient
Mhm.
next year, maybe, or like you're saying, starting this fall,
Yeah.
what do you think my results would be? Do you think I would see drastic results next year, or do you think this is a process that's gonna take time?
I think if you were to take a soil test this fall and address mineral deficiencies and ensure good crop, cover crop, which sounds like you guys are already doing a pretty good job with cover crops and mulch and things like that, you should experience, a good system function. I'm not sure what your disease pressures are, your pest pressures are, what your yields are and stuff like that. I would really need to see your land and see your operation to be able to give you anything resembling an intelligent response. I do want to break for lunch at some point. I am running late because we spent so much time on the questions. So unless you've got a question that needs to be asked,
How do you scale this to the small guy
you use one bag.
that has all that?
This is a ready mixed material that's available through the mineral depots right now for anybody who's an organizational member. I'm giving you the recipe so you can do with it as you wish. You can make your own, you can not make your own, you can keep doing what you want to do. I think it's, at least honorable to share with you what I do on my farm, and I think the fact that we've got it available for people at a pretty reasonable price is not a bad thing. I don't like bone meal, blood meal, feather meal. I don't like composted chicken manure. I don't like to bring in things that are products of the industrial system. I don't like to add soluble nutrients. This is the model that I've come up with, that I'm working with, and it seems to be working at least somewhat well. So I want to share with you the details and leave it to you to do with that as you wish. Yes.
You could maybe do this later if you want, or not at all, but I'm just wondering if you could use this list as an opportunity to like kind of talk about how it compares to or why it's different than Steve Solomon's. He's got, I can't remember what he calls it, but it's like a universal
Yeah.
thing. He's like, if you need to get a universal thing out of me, this would be it.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
I'm not sure when I read the book. I don't remember
Okay.
finding a lot of differences in it.
Okay.
We can look at it during lunch and we can talk about it if you want.
All right.
It's completely organic fertilizer.
Yeah, it's like his universal organic.
Yeah.
We take a quicker lunch.
Can we take a quicker lunch?